Do these people not understand where food comes from in this country?
The industry is on its knees.
Investors. Now, the government says sheltering wealth this way is unfair and unsustainable, so they're changing the rules. Instead of 100%...
Did you see that moment when a Labour MP casually compared having a mortgage to surviving on £70 a week benefits? The disconnect was so shocking, even BBC viewers couldn't believe what they were hearing. In this video, we break down exactly what was said, the immediate fallout, and why this represents a fundamental problem with Labour's understanding of working class struggles.
That will be a reflection of the fact that under the Conservatives we've got over 7 million people on an NHS waiting list.
Talking about how we're going to invest in miners' healthcare, how we're going to invest in specialist clinics for retired miners in that area.
The reaction from their own supporters tells us everything we need to know about where the party's priorities truly lie. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. What happens when politicians forget they're supposed to be pretending to care about the working class? That's exactly what we witnessed in this jaw-dropping BBC interview that's left Labour supporters scrambling for excuses. Let's break down what actually happened. Labour MP Jonathan Ashworth appeared on BBC Newsnight to discuss his party's controversial new welfare policy, targeting young people under 25.
For delivery or Just Eat, but obviously that's not going to be appropriate for everybody in their 50s to be cycling around cities and towns delivering takeaways.
And I think as the campaign has progressed, and we've talked about our policies on the NHS, and our policies on transport, and our policies on the future of schools...
The policy would require young adults living with their parents to actively seek work or training before qualifying for universal credit payments, a move critics immediately labelled as punitive and out of touch. The interview was progressing predictably until Victoria Derbyshire posed what should have been a straightforward question. Could you live on £70 a week? Watch the clip and you'll notice Ashworth's immediate physical reaction. The slight recoil, the uncomfortable shift in his chair, the fleeting panic in his eyes. Before he even opened his mouth, his body had already delivered the honest answer. "Well, no, I have a mortgage to pay," he blurted out with a dismissive wave of his hand. In that 5-second response, the mask completely slipped. This wasn't a calculated political answer, but a rare moment of accidental honesty, an admission that the very policy he was defending would impose conditions he himself couldn't possibly meet. Derbyshire's follow-up was masterful in its simplicity.
Agricultural property relief, covering land and farm buildings, and business property relief. That covers crops, livestock, machinery.
Investing in our NHS is the right solution to the country's problems. And that is something I'll say in private and I'll say it in public.
So why do you expect young people to live on that amount? Ashworth's face told the whole story. Eyebrows raised, gaze darting away from the camera, shoulders tensing. Rather than addressing the fundamental hypocrisy, he launched into a rehearsed spiel about housing benefits and other support available, never actually answering the question.
I think we're now turning things around in those constituencies. So I suspect when the MRP, the YouGov poll comes out tonight.
Of course, we've also got a number of people in their 50s who are out of work and are looking for work, and we've released some analysis today.
His body language throughout the exchange spoke volumes. Notice how he refused to maintain eye contact when discussing benefit claimants, the dismissive tone when mentioning young people sitting at home, and the defensive crossing of arms when challenged on the policy's fairness. The mortgage comment struck a particular nerve with viewers because it highlighted the vast gulf between Ashworth's reality and that of those affected by his party's policy. As an MP earning over £86,000 annually plus expenses, his casual dismissal of surviving on £70 weekly exposed a stunning disconnect. That £70 represents approximately one meal out for him versus an entire week's survival for those impacted by the policy. This unguarded moment perfectly encapsulates a troubling pattern within Starmer's Labour, campaigning on promises to protect society's most vulnerable while advancing policies that further marginalise them. It's the political equivalent of saying let them eat cake while claiming to understand hunger. That dismissive handwave didn't just dismiss a question, it dismissed millions of struggling Britons. And unlike the carefully choreographed responses we typically see in politics, the public's reaction to this moment of accidental honesty was raw, immediate, and came from the most unexpected source: Labour's own heartbroken supporters.
Are off on the sick, but who say with the right support they would return to work, and the government are doing nothing.
Banter, gossip with each other, wind each other up, tell each other stories all the time across the political spectrum.
The social media firestorm that erupted wasn't just another day of political outrage. This was different. These weren't Conservative critics or political opponents. These were Labour's own base turning against them in real time. One self-identified Labour supporter admitted they literally gasped when they heard the mortgage comment, a physical reaction that speaks volumes about the visceral shock even loyal followers experienced. What makes this reaction so significant is how it cut across traditional political allegiances. Long-time Labour voters weren't making excuses or defending their party. They were openly expressing betrayal. "I used to like and respect him," wrote one supporter, "but this shameless prevarication appalls me." Others were even more direct, with one bluntly declaring, "There's no bigger sellout than this guy."
Nobody expects those conversations to be recorded on phones. By the way, someone told me it's illegal. I don't know if it is illegal, but someone told me it was illegal.
Today, which suggests that only 759 of them have been given a chance to reskill and retrain under the Conservatives.
When your own supporters start using language like sellout, you know something fundamental has shifted. Perhaps most damning was the supporter who didn't mince words. Aggressive and dismissive Labour are and have always been the nasty party. This language, calling Labour the nasty party, is particularly significant because it's historically been used against Conservatives. When your own supporters start borrowing attack lines typically reserved for your opponents, you've lost control of your narrative completely. The brutal reality is that £70 per week in 2024, Britain is an impossible equation. After essentials like the cheapest possible food, around £30, minimal utilities, £20, and bare necessities, there's nothing left for transportation, clothing, hygiene products, or any unexpected expense. It's not just tight, it's mathematically unworkable. Yet Labour expects young people to not just survive on this amount, but somehow thrive enough to find employment or training.
On shops and the like. The problem, if you're the Treasury, is 100% relief attracts people who want to shelter their wealth, and that's affected who's buying.
So this is a government now which, after 13 years, is really failing on the economy. More people are losing their jobs.
The party's fumbling damage control attempts only made things worse. Rather than acknowledging the disconnect, their defensive responses confirmed what many had begun to suspect: that Starmer's Labour has abandoned its working-class foundations. This incident doesn't exist in isolation. It connects directly to Labour's rightward shift on asylum hotels and immigration, creating a pattern of betrayal that's becoming impossible for supporters to ignore. And there you have it, the moment that shattered Labour's carefully constructed facade. What we've witnessed isn't just one MP's unfortunate slip of the tongue, but a revealing glimpse into the soul of Starmer's party. Political analysts note that Labour's relationship with working-class voters has deteriorated precisely because of moments like these, with many feeling the party has become increasingly out of touch with their struggles. As one analyst put it, Labour's latest blunder has left even their own supporters scrambling to defend them. These unscripted moments tell us more about a politician's true beliefs than 1,000 carefully crafted speeches. When the pressure mounts and the rehearsed lines fail, we see what really matters to them. And it isn't the welfare of Britain's most vulnerable citizens. Remember this revealing exchange whenever Labour attempts to position itself as the champion of working people. The disconnect between Labour's lofty rhetoric and their actual policies has never been clearer. If you want more analysis that cuts through political spin and exposes the truth behind the carefully managed images, subscribe now. British politics deserves more honesty, and so do you.